Going into the first round of the draft in 2024, there were a lot of thoughts about what the Lions might do, but what they actually wound up doing was actually rather kind of surprising. We're going to talk about it in today's episode, folks, so stay tuned.
What are we? What makes us what we are and what we're going to be? It's grit. It's what we started with last year, guys. Doesn't matter if you have one ass cheek and three toes. I will beat your ass.
Can definitely compete with the big dogs.
10-5 end zone touchdown Detroit Lions.
You guys are unbelievable, man. I'm telling you.
We are driven by Detroit.
Hello, Lions fans, and welcome on back to yet another episode of MCM Motor City Mania. I'm your host, David T. Pike, and as always, we're diving on in. And I gotta say something, folks, that draft that we just witnessed, the first round of it at least anyway, whoo, that was what I would call one of the most epically weird drafts I've ever watched in my life. Not weird in a bad way, weird in a good way, because that was not a draft anybody, and I mean anybody, was expecting. There was very little about that draft that followed what would have been considered normal strategy, normal, script, whatever you want to call it. I mean, the most about that draft that actually was kind of like what we expected was the fact of all the quarterbacks getting drafted. But nobody expected 6 quarterbacks drafted within the first 12 picks. That has not happened ever. And in fact, the last time we had 6 quarterbacks drafted in the first round was in 1983. And the 6th quarterback didn't even get drafted until pick 27. So having 6 quarterbacks drafted almost double the distance of picks between that and 1983's, that was rather impressive and also rather surprising and shocking. But what was even more shocking is that for the first half of the first round, 15 picks were all offense. No defensive players selected until freaking pick 16. At least if I recall correctly. It could have been 15 or 16, whatever. The fact that it took that long to get a defensive player off the board. Again, another history setter, but at the same time, very shocking. Because what we were told is that there was a lot of top-end defensive talent this year, but yet most of the teams were looking at offense. Because by the time the first round was over, 23 offensive players have been taken. That literally ties a record that has only been matched 3 times in the NFL. But I'm going to tell you this right now. That was just the overall NFL draft experience. The fact that the Lions were able to get the player that they got, that was shocking. A good shock, a good surprise. I'm not here to talk about it like it was bad. That was awesome. Because I'm going to say this right now. To anybody who was, in the mock draft simulators, had listened to analysts, there was literally, if you talk to people about the cornerback position this year, almost everybody agreed that guys like, Wiggins, Dijon, and Arnold were not going to make it past pick number 15. There was almost nobody that thought that. There was virtually nobody that thought that they were going to last to the 20s. So the fact that the first cornerback didn't even go off the board until pick 22 was absolutely bewildering. But what was totally surprising about the Lions pick is that the Lions had the ability, first and foremost, to actually get him, Terrion Arnold. But the second part about it that was surprising was how little the Lions had to realistically give up to get him. Think about it. The Lions were at pick number 29. They traded up 5 spots with the Dallas Cowboys at pick 24, and all they had to give up was their other third-round pick, 73. That was it. That was all the Lions had to give up to get him. I call that a damn steal of a deal right there. Terrion Arnold was considered, again, depending upon who you talk to, the best cornerback prospect in the draft. He was considered by Brad Holmes at his, presser right after the draft to be the best cornerback to him. So you trade up 5 spots in the first round, and all you have to give up is a 3rd-round draft pick. And by the way, you get a 7th-round draft pick for next year. I know that doesn't count as much of a consolation prize, but again, the Lions got back a pick while also trading away a pick. My whole point is this, is that to me is surprising because it's like I would have thought the Cowboys, being, that Jerry Jones is a rather greedy individual, would have tried to price gouge the Lions. Because he would have known, based upon reports, that whoever the Lions were trading up for, it was probably going to be a corner. And with the fact that the first corner had just gone off the board 2 picks prior, there might have been a run on corners, which meant that the price could have probably been gouged up a little bit. But when we only traded a third-round pick, that surprised me. And then the fact that we actually had the ability to get Terrion Arnold. Awesome pick. I'm going to admit, I'm going to confess, I wanted Kool-Aid McKinstry. But the only reason I wanted him, other than the fact that I think he's an awesome corner, is because I thought there was no chance in this life or the next that Arnold, Wiggins, and all those other guys were going to be available at the time that we were picking. I would have bet everything that I was like, no, there's no chance. There's not a chance that they are going to be available around there. And then when they were, I was like, you know, this actually could get rather interesting. This actually could get rather, surprising how the Lions want to play this. And then when we found out the Lions were trading, and then they traded up to get Terrion Arnold, I was like, dude, we just got a great, great value pick. And apparently everybody else feels the same way. Because you take a look at Arnold. I took a look at him, but I really didn't spend a whole lot of time because, again, I didn't think we were going to have a chance to get him. But you take a look at Arnold, he's pretty much like Kool-Aid, but he's a little bit better. He has that same tenacity of being an aggressive tackler, but a good tackler as a cornerback. He has the ability to be a shutdown corner, both in man and in zone coverage. Again, listen to what Brad Holmes said. He said the man coverage, there's nothing to worry about there at all. He's got the size you're looking for. He's about 6 foot, 6'1". He's got the size in terms of pounds. He's about 200 pounds. So it's like, listen, this is a guy that can play with the bigger wide receivers. You don't have to worry about that either. But he also has the pedigree that I talked about with Kool-Aid. Hey, he comes from Alabama. He's coming from a program that is considered the best program in college football over the last, 15-something years. He's played against the best talent in the NCAA and has played exceedingly well, an elite level. Again, I took a look at his stats. I think he had, what was it? I think it was like a low 50s or high 40s for his overall passer rating in college last year as far as how well he did against quarterbacks and wide receivers. Absolutely spectacular, beautiful numbers. But when you take a look at his film, which I'm definitely going to be spending a lot more time, we're definitely going to have videos talking about his film breakdown after the draft is done. You take a look at what he's able to do on the field, it makes total damn sense why the Lions wanted him. And for me, the fact that the Lions were able to get him, and all you had to give up was a third-round pick to do so, dude, once again, Brad Holmes shows his damn brilliance. Brad Holmes shows that he is the master of the draft. He knows how to make the draft work in his favor. Now, granted, I will say this. Even Brad Holmes himself said, listen, I was not expecting the draft to go the way it did because he literally said it. He's like, the fact that those defensive talents kept getting pushed further and further down the board was not something that anybody was expecting. But the Lions definitely benefited from it. Because when you're able to get a talent like Terrion Arnold at pick 24 near the end of the first round when everyone was thinking he was like going to be a top 10, top 15 pick, that's just awesome value. You can't debate that. Now, I know this for a fact. I know that some people are going to say, well, David, that's great. We went out, we got Terrion Arnold. He's a great value pick. He's a great corner. We're expecting a lot out of him. But there's going to be two groups of people that are Lions fans that are going to pose these 2 points. Is it going to be another Jeff Okudah? And was it really smart to give up our last third-round pick, and now there's such a wide gap between our second-round pick to our next pick, which is at 164? Let's address both those points really quickly. Number one, I think that for anybody that is worried about this being another Jeff Okudah pick, let's understand something here. Jeff Okudah was pick number 3 overall. This is not 3 overall. This is 24th overall. So the value does not even compute. It does not even compare, number one. Number two, Bob Quinn is not even in the same damn universe, let alone the same room as freaking Brad Holmes. You can't compare their draft strategies or their ability to scout when it comes to cornerbacks. You can't even do it when you're talking about freaking overall draft success, draft record. So I trust Brad Holmes' ability to know what is a good player versus Bob Quinn's. Because let's think about it here. How many Pro Bowls, All-Pros that freaking Brad Holmes has had as a GM versus how many Bob Quinn had? It doesn't even compare. Plus, on top of that, let's take a look at Brad Holmes' first-round draft records. Penei Sewell, Aiden Hutchinson, Jamison Williams, Jahmyr Gibbs, Jack Campbell. Apart from J-Mo being a little bit of a late bloomer, every single one of the other ones has damn near hit every single time early on. So I'm not worried about that. So that's the first point. Second point. Yes, we gave up a third-round draft pick to go and get Terrion Arnold. And I know that for some people, the thought of having over 100 picks of difference between 61 to 164, that's a bit alarming because now we've got nothing in the third or fourth round. Our next pick's not until the fifth round after the second round. But again, Brad Holmes showed that in this draft already, he has no problem trading up. But wait a minute, Brad Holmes has also shown in the past he has no problem trading down either. So it wouldn't surprise me if Brad Holmes decides to orchestrate a situation where he'll trade back and pick up picks in the third and fourth round to try and compensate a little bit. But here's what I want to try and present as a new philosophy, as a new idea for Lions fans to start kind of getting their heads wrapped around, start getting accustomed to. We don't need that many draft picks anymore to try and get the team into a position to compete. We're already competing. We're already contending. At this point, it's like, listen, you don't need 7, 8, 9, 10 draft picks so that way you can restock your roster. At this point, it's not about quantity. It's about quality. So if Brad Holmes decides, hey, you know what? I don't really feel the need to trade back to get more draft picks. I like who's here at 61. That's not going to bother me. Because Brad Holmes could then say, hey, if there's a guy that I like that I think I can get at a decent price, Brad Holmes could decide to trade draft picks from his next year's draft class. Or maybe even the year after that. My whole point is this, folks. Brad Holmes has proven, he has shown now through going into his fourth draft that he knows how to make the draft work for the Lions' favor. He has drafted absolutely amazing talent at amazing positions without having to put the team's financial or, future success in jeopardy. So for me, it's like, hey, I trust what Brad Holmes is doing. I trust the fact that he has been able to assess the situation every single draft and look at it and be like, yep, I know how I can make this work. Sometimes it's a little bit of luck. Sometimes it's a little bit of patience. Sometimes it's just, hey, you know what? Everything has to combine itself to come together perfectly for it to work for you. My whole point is this. Whether or not Brad Holmes trades back from pick 61, trades up picks from next year to get a third or a fourth round pick, I don't care. The point of the matter is that after the first round of the draft, I'm already very, very happy about how Brad Holmes has handled himself because I'm already very happy about the player that we got. It might not have been Kool-Aid, which is the guy I was rooting for, but the fact that we got Terrion Arnold, who's considered a much better prospect than Kool-Aid, and the fact that you were able to get him at 24, I'm absolutely ecstatic about. Now, again, like I said, I know some Lions fans are going to be like, well, David, you still could have gotten a great prospect because when, pick 29 came about, there was still Nate Wiggins. There was still Cooper DeJean. There was still Kool-Aid McKinstry. So some people are going to be like, was really trading up that much of a need that we had to give up that third-round draft pick? Let me ask it this way. Do you think that Brad Holmes is smart enough to know the difference between the talent of Terrion Arnold versus all the other cornerbacks when he said it so himself in his draft presser that there was a huge difference between Terrion Arnold as a prospect versus the other cornerbacks? That right there tells me if all I had to give up was a third-round draft pick to go up and get Terrion Arnold versus all the other guys that Brad Holmes didn't think that were in the same league as him, I am totally fine with that. My whole point is this. It was a surprise, but it was one of the most pleasant surprises that I could ever have imagined for the first night of the draft, and I cannot wait for the rest of it. But having said all that, I'm going to end this episode really quickly. Thank you all for watching the episode, and I thank you all for everything you guys do. You guys are an awesome, awesome group, and I hope you all enjoyed the draft as much as I did because I'm looking forward to tomorrow. Having said that, I also want to say I hope you all subscribe to the channel, please. Again, whether you've subscribed in the past, you forgot to do so at the time, or you just subscribed and now had a chance to do so, please subscribe. It really helps out the channel. We're so close to 6,000 subscribers. Let's keep pushing forward. I also encourage y'all, after you subscribe, if you should choose to do so, pardon me, make sure you also hit that bell notification icon at the bottom. Also encourage y'all to share the content with your Lions friends and family members. Share it here on YouTube, share it on Twitter, share it on Facebook, share it everywhere and anywhere you can with everybody and anybody that you can. The more we can share it, the greater the channel grows and spreads. And with that being said, I just want to say to everybody, thank you all for everything you do. You guys are awesome. I hope you all have something that makes you happy, makes you smile, and I hope you'll enjoy the content. And with that, I'll see you all tomorrow for the next day of the NFL Draft. And until the next time we meet, God bless, and I'll see you all in the next episode.